Good morning. Here we are, day 5. So, all right, who's ever in here? Peep in, say good morning to me. I always like it when I see my viewers say good morning or hi or whatever. Okay, let me go ahead and set up the court. I'm going to be right back. I'll hide me. Yeah. And all right, I'm getting set up. Hi, good morning, Moon Fox. Good to see you here. All of you. All 2 of you so far. I'll be right back. Okay, good morning. Again, did any of you have a chance to look at our impromptu live stream last night? We were doing just a kind of a recap of what was going on, and so far on the trial. So, we are waiting. Sorry, I was going up the stairs. I had to get something. We are waiting for the day 5 trial to begin. And here we are. Sitting here wondering, when is this going to pick up? Why haven't the state haven't presented some of the facts and the evidence? Well, I don't know. I did some little probing last night and talking to a live streamer who does this, attorney. I'm not going to say who, because I don't have permission to use his name, but I came up with a pretty good idea. And that idea is that the state is going to tell a story, and they don't want to show their hand right away. So they're just going to put the evidence in. So yeah, it's a little dry right now, but I think things picked up when the nanny testified, and I had to tell you that, yeah, the story started to come into play for me. So, Moonfox, what's your 2 cents so far? So we're on day 5, everyone. We're on day 5. We've been, well, almost gavel to gavel, but hey, here we are. Here we are. So, we will be finishing with the witness that was before. I believe he was a detective. I can't remember his name. Sorry. Let me see if I have it in my notes somewhere. I'll look that up later. Yeah, to me, we have Lauren, the nanny, Michelle, and we have Fotis and Jennifer. Okay, that's fair enough, Moonfox. That's fair enough. I'm just trying to keep this from being dead air. And we have these relationships going on. We had the nanny that was pretty close to Jennifer. And then we had Jennifer in the beginning that was pretty close to Fotis. So here we are. Do I think it's going slow? And yeah, but I think there might be for a reason that it is going slow. Everybody has their theories out there. Everybody has their take, what's going on. Our wild imaginations are running wild with all kinds of different scenarios. Well, I think they'll have, I think I looked it up where they had like past employers of Fotis, and I think definitely the close friend, Laura, maybe Laura, to tell the story. Right now we have a setup of the story. We have the nanny. This is why I like trials that don't make sense. I really do. I enjoy these kind of trials. I don't know about my audience. If you like a cut and dry trial, this isn't the trial for you. So yeah, I think her close friend would be next. You too? You like the ones that don't make sense? Yeah, because I like to piece the puzzles together and see how right I was or wrong I was. Either way, I was totally wrong, totally right. You never know. So, the story is it's a mystery novel. Yes, maybe that's what I'm leaning towards, mystery. So here's our little story so far, Moonfox. Since we're the only ones that are chatting, let's go for it. Here we are. We have this trial that started, and it's the stage, right? It's showing us the house. A lot of people thought it was, why are they doing that? I think they're setting the stage. It's like when you read a novel. Do you ever notice? They tell you about the house. They tell you about where things were in place. And, they just give you a little bit of a feel of what was really going on, right? I thought it was pretty clever. Some people thought it was pretty boring. Some people thought it was just not What does this have to relate to? That's all I think it relates to. Now you got to remember, I'm a trained journalist. So that's how I take this. And I have an imagination that just goes wild. So now after that, we've seen the full picture of the home, which is absolutely gorgeous, by the way. And we go to the good, I'm glad you are. Now we go into the analysis of the DNA of the blood. So now we're having an attorney who's really trying hard to kick any evidence out of the DNA, saying it is not accurate. So he's questioning the program they used. This is the story so far, okay? Oh, gosh. Hey, Moonfox, am I making sense? So here we are. We're hearing the defense, like a football game, defense saying, hey, I don't think that this program was accurate. Okay, thank you. And I'm going to question the STR mix program. What numbers did they actually use to get to this conclusion? This was actually blood. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. And then everybody's like, oh, gee, we're going to look at blood on the floor again. Why? You know what? I thought the same thing. You guys saw me on here. I'm like, oh, gosh, I wish I had my knitting needles out. But I'm kind of glad we stuck to it. And to me, that was an important thing. Very important. Because Fotis did a great job of cleaning up the mess, except for a little bit of, you never fully clean up a crime scene. Now, my next question is, who really did the cleanup? I just thought of this right now, Moonfox. My brain just went, did he really clean it up? Because that was professional. Come on. The nanny didn't even notice the blood. Of course, are you going to look down and look for it? It was still there. Just because she didn't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Yeah. See how this is a mystery to me? Yeah, Moonfox, I think we're telling a great story here. So now we have the detective is scared to death. He's scared to death. What are they going to find? Michelle's. I still think Michelle is in this piece, but she doesn't fit yet because the state isn't ready to play that card. They're telling a story through all of these witnesses coming into play, and we're listening to the argument. I hope somebody, I'm keeping an eye on court. It's like, really? What are they scared of to find in the DNA? So they question this program, and then the judge says, no. But I did find some information that this program that they used, he is right in certain aspects. Because there has been reports that people have complained about it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, questioning that, yeah, okay, I'll go with that. And so here we are with that. And then we'll go back to why wasn't there an opening? There you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you had an opening, you couldn't do all this storytelling with your players yet. So now we have the nanny. The nanny comes into the story. And we all know that we all have our thoughts on her. So who is Lauren? I can't put my last name on her just on the tip of my tongue here yet. Who is the nanny? Well, the nanny was working with him for 10 years. And correct me if I'm wrong, because oh, thank you. Thanks. I really appreciate that, Moonfox. So the nanny is coming in. Okay, they're introducing the character of the nanny in this mystery novel, as you say. She comes into play. And she says in the beginning she was, she had a good rapport with Fotis. Yeah. And she called him her mentor at the beginning, remember? Yeah. And how he helped her, encourage her to continue on with her education. And also she has a relationship with the mother of the family, Jennifer. Jennifer confides in her. Okay, they become friends. Fotis is really not aware of them being such good friends just yet into the whole thing, because I don't think he knew. He was probably busy doing other stuff. We'll just leave that to your imagination. But anyway, so yeah, so Fotis comes into the whole picture, and no, the nanny comes into the whole picture with Fotis. They have a good rapport. She has a good rapport with the kids. Now, I never had that rapport when I was a nanny. Oh no. Well, they never discussed her marriage problems with me. She was very private, and she should be. I'm just a nanny. Yeah, that's kind of sad. That's taking care of your loved ones. Anyway, so time goes on. Just going to make this short, sweet, and quick. We went to a shift now. Okay, following me? We went to a shift. Now Fotis is beginning to realize how close his nanny really is with his wife. That he's cheating on. And that he maybe have a little thing with her, with the nanny, Lauren. We don't know. Is it possible? We're not into the story yet. Too deep to know. We're reading this story. We are intrigued in this story. What happened? We're hanging on to this novel. What really happened? The relationship between the nanny and Fotis. What is the truth into that? In the beginning, was hunky-dory. Everybody liked each other. Then all of a sudden, he yells at her when she drops the kids off, and he becomes this. Turns into it does a 90-degree angle of a change of behavior. Really, sink on that one for a minute. You're on the jury. I'd be going home thinking, whoa. Yeah, the nanny could be jealous. Yeah. That Michelle came into play. So my next question is, with this whole entire novel case story, is how did Fotis meet Michelle? Huh. Am I missing some pieces of information from anybody that can enlighten me? Well, we're still staring at Connecticut seal. Yeah, okay, good question. So you don't even know either, right, Moonfox? I mean, gosh, like I said in the beginning of my channel, please just, in Greece. Okay, let's talk about Michelle for a second. Okay, they're claiming that Michelle does not have a very good handle on that she doesn't have a very good on the English language. She doesn't have it. She gets confused. There's a language barrier. Hey, Moonfox, have you seen her interrogations a little bit? I have. I didn't watch a lot of it, but I was under the impression she knew a little bit of English. She knew what was going on. Why does she need an interpreter? Why didn't she say in that interrogation, I need an attorney and I need an interpreter? Because if I tell you one thing, if I have a little bit of not a good knowledge of the English language, and I was a foreigner or whatever, I don't know, but I would want somebody representing me, that's for sure. And that's really not the state's job, right? If they really thought she had a bad language barrier, don't you think somebody would have at that and with the interrogation of her interview? Don't you think that they would ask her if she needed one? If it was really that bad? I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're not making any sense. Do you think we need to give you a little? You think we should provide an interpreter for you? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm not out of line. I hope I'm not boring. But yeah. I'm glad I had this few minutes before before the trial. I'm glad I put together this little mystery novel thing. And I am intrigued by this whole thing. I am. Because there's so many things that I have questions. I mean, I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of things that just don't add up. And one of my questions are, I don't think I am going to write these down. Yeah, of course, there always are. There's always ones provided. I mean, goodness sakes, we live in the United States of America. We give those people their rights to have an interpreter and their rights to have attorney. So Hot Coffee's questions are, Michelle. Okay, I'm stuck on this relation triangle. And her involvement with Lauren, the nanny. And then I have Fotis on my chart. Okay. I have Michelle. And I have Lauren. And I have Fotis. Any other players? Oh, let's not forget about his friend that's going to come up. His friend, that was the attorney. But we're not there yet. So, yeah. So anyway, that's a little bit of a summary of Hot Coffee's chat bits. Ooh, Hot Coffee chat bits. I should have a little segment on that. Little Hot Coffee chat bits. Okay, Moonfox, you better go get some coffee. Join in the coffee crowd. If you don't drink coffee, tea, pop, water, soda. Okay, soda for the Easterners. And we had a whole conversation on that one day. Yeah. How to know if you're a Midwesterner? You call Bob. All right, so if you're just joining me in right now we are waiting for the court, and I'm sorry if I was boring you with my little spat of what I think what happened, and so far. So it's just my interpretation. And yeah, we're still waiting for the court. And yeah, my little rant and rave sort of thing. I'm just trying to come up with some stuff before it starts. Before the fun starts. Yeah. So they are late. Yeah. Okay. All right. Adding this to the stage. Cool. That way we know we are going to do this today still. All right. So we are now waiting for the court to come in, and we're waiting for it to start. And now I think we're going to have that other witness that we left off from yesterday afternoon. He'll continue on, I believe. So if you're in the chat, I would appreciate you say good morning, hit the like button because it warms my heart. Yeah, I do all those little UB-TUBY things that make us feel good about our work. So anyway, yeah, it's an interesting ride so far. I know it's boring while waiting, and I'm ranting and raving about my little spill. Another day in paradise. What can I say? Another day of what's going to happen. Yeah. So we're waiting patiently. 6 minutes. Post time has really already gone 6 minutes ago. I don't know what else to talk about. Whoever's in here, what do you think so far? I like to hear from my viewers. Okay, there's movement. So far, I don't hear any talk just yet.
Can we maybe just have 5 more minutes or so?
How about 10:15?
Sure.
Oh.
Also, the court will advise the jury
I
that
have
today
good
we
morning. Good
are
morning.
adjourning at 3 o'clock.
Here we are, day 5 of the trial.
All right.
Thanks for coming in.
This honorable hears for an outstanding recess. You want to get a copy, please?
All right, come on. Oh, this is killing me. In and out, in and out. Anyway, let's take a little morning roll call. Who's here with me today? Just so I know I'm not talking to a screen. Just a screen. Okay, that's fine. So anyway, I guess we're going to wait for the court to come back. Maybe he has to address some more drama. So does anybody have any thoughts? No? All right, so we're we're waiting for the court to start. Again, well, it started, but now we're here. Oh boy. We're never on time. But I am maybe a few minutes on there late, but I try to be on time. All right, let me see what happened. Oh boy. Hang in there with me, please. Hang in there with me. Oh, for God's sakes. I just saw this trial might go in for until March. No. Okay, so they all rised. They rised. Then they left. Now we're staring at this seal. Now I can recognize Connecticut's seal if I ever had to be quizzed on it. On all the seals in the United States, which I did the other day. I got 18 out of 50, for God's sakes. Then finally, it was like the process of elimination. It's like maybe that's why I got a little more points, but I was really not doing well. If you look at the seal and just look at what the picture shows, you can tell who it is. See, look at this. I'm talking about this. Oh gosh. Come on, you guys. Somebody enlighten me. Tell me what you think, what your thoughts. Keep them to yourself. I never keep any thoughts to myself. Yeah, I do. I have to. I got a filter. I know I do. A lot. So, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Thanks for hanging in. Yeah, I know. This is totally dead silence. I apologize. I don't know what's going on, but they got to address something, right? He did go into the courtroom, and they said all rise, and all of a sudden, boop, it's gone. And the reason why I couldn't hear anything because my earplugs were attached to my computer. Oh gosh, go figure. Alrighty, I'm off to a good start. I have my audience, 3 people in here. God bless them. They're hanging in there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been live for 35 minutes, and so far they have been late for about 15 minutes. Okay, just a second. I gotta hide for a second.
This animal spirit court is now open for practice.
Can everybody hear this
Have
okay?
you concluded your discussions, Attorney McGinnis? Showing up.
Good morning, Judge. Yes, we have, I believe the defense is signing the stipulation right now. There's two stipulations, Your Honor, relating essentially to chain of custody issues with respect to evidence that Detective Riley seized and was subsequently submitted to the state laboratory. I'll just indicate that the defense has asked that the state ask a few clarifying questions on direct examination of this witness, essentially indicating that most of these swabs taken by Detective Riley were not tested for confirmatory blood, human blood.
I got it all the way up to 100.
That they were simply sent for DNA analysis.
All right, time for earplugs or earphones, not earplugs, earphones.
Asking those questions. The
Gonna
witness
do it.
who ordinarily would testify to that is expected to testify sometime next week or so.
So what the court will probably do is ask that the stipulation be presented to the court after the state's questions,
So Judge, if I may.
unless there's cross-examination.
Well, there's another reason maybe not to do that. It's, and if I may interject, I think this is why we're agreeing to this. What this is basically a flow chart. We're skipping some of the chain of custody material. So to facilitate that flow, it may be necessary at least to put it up or to mention it beforehand, only because this witness is going to be testifying to testing things that came from, and makes it sound like it was picked up at the garage and whisked to her office, when instead there are a couple of intermediate steps that would need to be clarified. We don't need to do it in cross-examination. If it goes in this way, at least it explains that skipped step, if you will.
So you have the flow chart, correct?
It's not in a chart form, but it's essentially that.
My intention, Your Honor, was essentially to publish the stipulation with each exhibit so that this was identified as State Police 12. It was submitted to the state laboratory and re-designated as laboratory submission 2, for example. And then can you please tell us the results of 2, right? Can you sort of go through it that way? And so I'm going to publish the stipulation as we go along. If the court would like to review it in advance, I'm happy to tender that now.
Well, what the court has to do is explain to the jury what a stipulation is.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
And so what the court will do is wait for counsel to indicate that it may be an appropriate time for the court to explain what a stipulation is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll note we've signed the stipulation. There's 2 stipulations. There was one other, I think it's just that there was one additional remark, that it's not just that several of these things were not tested, but that some were tested and were negative for blood. And the reason this is important is the stipulation uses the same name that the police used, and it often mentions Castlemeyer and luminol. And of course, this goes back to whether, my concern about it being in it all, but since it is, for most of these, there was never a confirmatory test, and then some that were tested came back negative. It would give the false impression, perhaps, to the jury that when there was DNA, that it was blood DNA, when in fact it was skin cell DNA, even though it was taken from something called a blood-like stain that tested positive for KM, but it's to get that clarified because of the reference to those reagent presumptive tests.
He's not giving up, is
Ready
he?
to proceed.
There's just one other thing I want to put on the record, and the state did share this with us, and I just want to raise it now so it doesn't happen in the future. The witness who was here yesterday had been instructed specifically by the state not to mention a firearm. So this is a witness who then apparently deliberately violated an instruction, and that's why I wanted to let the court know that if we have concerns about any other witness, we would need to have either a sidebar or a discussion outside the presence of the jury. Perhaps if the court had admonished the witness, she wouldn't have disobeyed the instructions by the state.
Well, the court would not have known that the state instructed the witness not to mention firearms.
Your Honor, if I could just be heard on that, I don't think that Ms. Almeida deliberately violated any sort of instruction. The question was phrased by me, I think, a little inartfully. I had not appreciated the fact that she had mentioned the gun when asked whether or not, what she had relayed to the police. I was expecting to just hear that there was a missing mother, and she apparently misunderstood, and so it was completely inadvertent. As the court knows, what we're doing here is a tightrope act, and these things are going to happen from time to time. But yes, the witness was instructed not to mention the gun, and unfortunately, what happened, but I don't think there was any sort of deliberate, attempt to circumvent the instruction by the state. And I'll also just add, Judge, that I had actually offered for Ms. Almeida to be present in the room during the offer of proof and the argument on the uncharged misconduct, and the defense did not want her present. And I specifically indicated that I would hope that she would be present, so perhaps that is another way to handle things in the future, that the witness could actually be present for some of the arguments so the witnesses understand exactly what the scope is. And I indicated at that hearing that I would not be eliciting evidence of the firearm. So I just want to say that I think it was completely inadvertent, and
I agree.
Thank you.
She said it, and it was just like,
Ready for
oh,
the jury.
yeah. Anyway, two stipulations.
Let's bring the jury.
He's definitely not giving up on the blood. Bring the jury. Bring the jury. Okay. Who do we have? Let me see if I can do closed captions on this. If they allow me to.
The counsel stipulate to the presence of.
Yes, sir.
Let me get it.
Your Honor, the state calls Kristen Maydell.
Kristen Maydell. I'm not really sure what a relationship is just yet.
You could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm as the case may be that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury?
I do.
Can you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Kristen Maydell, KRISTEN MADEL.
And your affiliation?
I work at the forensic lab.
Ma'am, you may be seated. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ms. Maydell, who employs you?
The State of Connecticut Forensic Science Laboratory.
Where's the Forensic Science Laboratory located?
It's located at 278 Colony Street in Meriden, Connecticut.
How long have you worked for the State Police Forensic Laboratory?
Next week will be 20 years.
Ooh.
What is your position in the lab?
I'm currently a forensic science examiner 2 in the DNA unit.
What are your duties at the laboratory?
My main duties are to extract DNA from items of evidence that may contain biological stains or material. I perform analyses. I develop a DNA profile when possible, write reports, and testify in court when necessary. I also am a supervisor in the DNA unit, so I supervise 2 FSC 1s or forensic science examiner 1s within the unit on their daily duties. I am the quality control coordinator for the DNA unit also, which means that I make sure that all the reagents and consumables that we use in our DNA testing process are checked before they're used for casework. And I'm also the contact person for missing persons cases that require DNA testing.
I'm going to hand you several exhibits that have been marked for identification as states 18 through 28. I'm just going to show you States Exhibit 18 first. What is States Exhibit 18?
This is my CV.
And I have provided a copy of that to turn show on movement evidence.
Could I just see which one it is, please? No objection.
That's States 18.
It is, Judge.
States 18 will be admitted as a full exhibit.
Good morning. Can't do anything about the sound.
I'm also going to hand you States 19 through 26 for identification purposes only, and just ask that you hang on to those for now. And if I could just have a brief moment.
I had to put my phones on. Earphones.
Chad, you mentioned that you
Good morning. Good morning.
DNA portion of the laboratory. Can you tell the jury what is DNA?
DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it's the hereditary material found in a cell that makes you who you are as an individual and an organism. DNA is passed from parent to child, where you get half your DNA from your mom and half your DNA from your dad. And DNA
I love
is
DNA.
unique to an individual, except for identical twins.
Before you proceed, ma'am, there's an interpreter. So we would ask that you would just slow down your delivery so that the interpreter can interpret accurately.
Okay. No
Thank
problem.
you.
She is a fast talker.
What are some sources of DNA?
You can get DNA from cells in your body. So cheek cells within your mouth, blood, saliva, body fluids such as semen. There's DNA in the roots of your hair, nuclear DNA, bones, and teeth.
What is the purpose of DNA testing?
DNA testing is a forensic tool of comparison. So we want to try to include or exclude a possible person as being a contributor to that evidentiary profile. So we develop a DNA profile from a known profile and the evidence, and we compare those to see if they match.
How do you obtain a DNA profile?
We use standard protocols and procedures that are accepted throughout the United States and the world. First, you want to get the DNA out of the cell. So you open up those cells and extract the DNA. Then we want to see how much DNA we have. So we want to quantify that DNA. After we know how much DNA we have, we want to go make many more copies of that DNA. So we amplify it, think of a photocopier. And then after that, we want to separate those DNA types so we can develop a DNA profile, which is represented by a series of numbers.
I love this.
Approximately how many DNA profiles do you typically compare to evidence in a given year as either a primary analyst or a technical reviewer?
Oh, thousands.
Mm.
Does your equipment also have the ability to tell you whether or not one or more of the contributors to a DNA profile are male or female?
Yes.
What is a mixture?
A mixture is when you have a DNA profile that is more than two people, two or more people contributing to that profile. So to give an example, like I said before, you get half your DNA from your mom and half your DNA from your dad. So if your mom gives you one type and your dad gives you that same type, you might only have that one type represented at any specific test site. If your mom gives you one type and your dad gives you a different type, you would have two different types at that test site. So if there's ever evidence of 3 or more types at a particular site, that's evidence that it's more than coming from more than one person.
Are you familiar with the term trace DNA?
Yes.
What is trace DNA?
Trace DNA is DNA that is left behind when it comes in contact with a person or an object.
Is it possible to touch something or come in contact with something and your DNA not be detected during testing?
Yes, that is possible. It depends on how long you touch something, how hard you touch something, what the substrate is, and how much DNA can get left behind.
What is primary transfer?
Primary transfer of DNA is when you transfer DNA from a person to an object or a person to person.
What is secondary transfer?
Secondary DNA transfer is when DNA can be transferred from a person to an object, from a person to an object to a person, from a person to an object to an object. Oh, I said that one already. But yeah, those are some examples.
And in doing your analysis, you reach certain conclusions, is that correct?
Yes, but after we make a comparison between the evidence and a known profile, we would have a conclusion, correct?
I'd like to talk to you about different conclusions and what those mean so that the jury is clear. When you reach the conclusion included, what does that mean?
An included conclusion would mean that the types in the known profile are present in the evidentiary profile where there are results.
What does the conclusion cannot be eliminated mean?
Cannot be eliminated is a conclusion where you have a partial match between the known types and the evidence where results are detected.
What does the conclusion eliminated mean?
Eliminated is when the known types are not present. Some of them or all of them are not present in the evidentiary profile.
What does your conclusion consistent with source mean?
Consistent with source is when the known types are present in a single source profile at where results are obtained.
And what does the conclusion consistent with contributor mean?
Consistent with a contributor is also a conclusion where a person's types are present in a mixture profile where there's results.
Are you familiar with the acronym STR?
Yes.
What does STR stand for?
STR is the actual type of nuclear DNA testing that we do. It stands for short tandem repeats. And this is type of DNA testing that is used throughout Connecticut and the world. And you are basically looking at length variant repeats. So at any particular site, like I was talking about before with the different types, those types are represented by a number, and that number is because of the number of repeats at that site. So you think of it as a train, and every train has a engine car and a caboose, but the number of train cars in between those are the repeats and the different lengths. So I may have 15 train cars in between, but you may have 16. So those are what we're looking at.
Are you familiar with something known as STR mix?
Yes.
What is that?
That is a software that is used to help the DNA analyst interpreting the DNA profiles.
Are you familiar with the term likelihood ratio?
Yes.
What is that?
A likelihood ratio is the evaluation of the weight of the evidence under alternate hypothesis. So that's the statistical weight that we give to a conclusion that is at a positive association. So you have some kind of weight to what that conclusion means.
At the laboratory itself, what types of steps do you take to ensure there's no contamination from sample to sample?
We always wear lab coats, masks, gloves, hair nets when we're processing samples in the laboratory. We use bleach and UV light to clean our surfaces, and we have separate testing spaces for our known profiles versus our question samples.
When a case gets assigned to the laboratory, does it get a particular case number?
Yes.
I want to direct your attention now to a laboratory case number entitled ESS-19-002984. Did you conduct DNA analysis under this laboratory case number?
Yes, I did.
And was this laboratory case number associated with the New Canaan State Police investigation into the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos?
Yes, it was.
And in terms of doing DNA analysis, what do you need as a forensic scientist to do a comparison between a particular person and a DNA profile found on a piece of evidence?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. So how do you do a comparison between a particular person and an item and a DNA profile that you find on an item of evidence?
Well, you have to develop a DNA profile for both of those. You need a known sample from that individual or person that you want to compare the evidence to.
You mentioned a known sample. What is a known sample?
A known DNA sample is a sample taken directly from a person that you know it's coming from, that source. Typically swabbing up the inside of your cheek swab.
Are you familiar with the term pseudoknown?
Yes.
What is a pseudoknown sample?
A pseudoknown sample is a sample that's typically a piece of evidence that you gather from a person that you think their profile would be on, and it would be a single source because you can't collect a buccal swab from that person. So a good example of this would be a toothbrush. You should be the only person on your toothbrush, and then we could develop a DNA profile from that to use for comparison.
In connection with this particular case, did you receive known DNA samples from several individuals?
I did.
And perhaps I'll just read them. Did you receive known DNA samples from Fotis Dulos, Michelle Troconis, Lauren Almeida, Joel Gumieni, Petros Dulos, Theodore Dulos, Christiane Dulos, Constantine Dulos, and Noel Dulos?
I did.
Now, when a known DNA sample is processed at the laboratory, who typically processes that sample?
Typically, the knowns are done in a separate section of the lab to keep them separate from the evidence, and we have a separate section of people who process those knowns. I actually processed the two from Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis myself because I believe it was a sample that needed to be processed quickly, so I did them by myself and didn't wait for someone in the known section to do them.
So essentially, the ordinary process is a known DNA sample is extracted by someone else in the laboratory, and then you ordinarily review that data and compare it to the samples found on the evidence. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, it's done in a different part of the lab. It goes through the same process. it's analyzed, it's reviewed, and then that final profile is given to me so I can use it in comparison to the evidentiary profiles that I have.
You mentioned in this case that you personally did the extraction for the known DNA samples of Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis. Is that correct?
I did, yes.
Did you do any other extractions of what would be considered a pseudo-known sample?
I did. I processed the toothbrush.
Were you able to generate a DNA profile from the toothbrush?
I did.
Your Honor, perhaps this would be an appropriate time to present the stipulation.
Yes.
This has been marked as State's Exhibit 27 and 28. 27 is entitled a stipulation regarding evidence seized from 69 Wells Lane in 2014 Range Rover. And State's Exhibit 28 is entitled stipulation regarding evidence seized from Jennifer Dulos' Chevy Suburban.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, what the state and the defense have agreed upon is contained in what is called a stipulation. It is signed by both parties. Stipulation is an agreement as to certain facts. So you will have an opportunity at the appropriate time to review those stipulations. Again, those stipulations concern an agreement between the state and the defense as to certain facts. Do you wish to publish it now or no?
I'll publish it as we proceed with the direct trial.
Thank you.
Are you familiar with something known as a parentage analysis?
Yeah, parentage comparison is when we compare to see if a parent can be the possible donor to that child's DNA. So we do a comparison and then a statistic to show the frequency of people who could be a parent to that child.
And did you do a parentage analysis in this particular case?
I did. I compared the toothbrush to one of the Dulos children.
Like just approach. This is State's 29 for identification, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Can I just look at it quickly, please?
Good morning. I just popped up who was on the stand. We're going through the DNA.
Thank you.
By agreement, Your Honor, I think State's Exhibit 29 can become a full exhibit.
States 29 admitted as a full exhibit.
Handing you State's Exhibit 29. You indicated that you had done an analysis of the profile that you obtained from the toothbrush to Petros Dulos. Is that correct?
Yes, this is the report I generated with that comparison.
And can you tell the jury what your conclusion was?
My conclusion was the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is consistent with being a parent of Petros Dulos. The expected frequency of individuals who could be a parent of Petros Dulos is less than 1 in 8.1 billion in the general population.
Now, when evidence comes to the state laboratory, is it given a submission number?
Yes, when a submitting agency brings any evidence to the lab, it's given a unique case number, which we discuss is this DSS 19-002984, and then each piece of evidence is then given a number underneath that case number.
And what was the submission number for the toothbrush in this case?
Submission number 7.
Now, ordinarily, if there is swabs taken by a police department and submitted to the state laboratory for further forensic analysis, where's the first stop for those swabs?
If there's just a DNA request, those swabs would go to the forensic biology unit, where they would prep those swabs for the DNA unit. So the person would just basically cut the cotton swabs off the tip and put them in a tube for DNA.
And are you familiar with someone named Christine Boyd?
I am. She's a forensic scientist in the forensic biology unit.
And she has since retired, is that correct?
That is correct.
But she did most of the cutting in this particular case, is that correct?
From what I recall, yes.
And when a swab is cut off by forensic biology and submitted for DNA analysis, does that get an additional submission number?
Yes, it gets what we call itemized. So if the parent item is number 1, then when they cut that swab off, they'll designate it as either a 1-1 or a 1S1. Since it's been 5 years, the evidence nomenclature has changed a little bit, but it gets a sub-item of that parent item.
And many of these swabs that were submitted were described by the state police as being KM positive. Are you familiar with that term?
Yes.
What does that stand for?
KM is Kasselmeyer is a chemical screening test for the presence of blood in the sample.
Many of these swabs, though, were not tested at the laboratory for confirmatory blood. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And some actually were tested additionally by the laboratory and came back negative. Is that correct?
For confirmatory testing or KM?
I believe for KM.
There might be some results in here that we did do KM testing on some samples. I can't recall exactly, but.
Okay. And if I just have a moment to reach just to be clear, most of these swabs were not confirmatory tested for blood either. Is that correct?
Correct. Confirmatory test would be a separate test than KM. KM is a screening test.
Now, you've indicated that you did analysis in this case. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to talk to you about some of the results, if I could. Let me just pull up the first one, please. Your Honor, I'm publishing on the screen a photograph which is found in State's Exhibit in Folder 3, specifically photograph 2. and I'm just going to publish the stipulation at this point. State Police Exhibit 9 was seized from 69 Wells Lane by Detective Riley on May 25th, 2019, and identified as 2 swabs from the scene, exterior handles of the mudroom back door, and was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission number 2. And Ms. Maydell, just for your benefit, this is referred to in DNA Sup 1, Sup 9, and Sup 18. Could you tell the jury what your conclusions were with respect to submission number 2?
So for the first report that it was reported in the supplemental DNA report, and it is item 2S1 was the swabs from, quote, exterior handles of a mudroom back door. The results are consistent with a DNA profile from item 2S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors with at least one of them being male. Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush could be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 2S1.
May I interpret a request that you speak a little bit slower?
Sorry. Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Fotis Dulos could be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 2S1.
And what about the defendant?
Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 2S1.
And
Could we have a sidebar for a moment, Your Honor?
She's eliminated. Michelle's DNA have not been found in the mudroom so far. Is that what I'm getting? That doesn't mean anything. Still, it doesn't mean anything. She could be somewhere else. So the defense wants a sidebar. Does anybody else get the impression that this that the defense really wants anything related to blood out of the courtroom? I mean, I don't know. I like this witness. I like the way she explains things. Excuse me. Yeah, it does seem like it. This attorney is not giving up. I got to give him that credit for not giving up. Not giving up. She's confident. She knows her stuff. What else do you want to ask me? Yeah. knows her stuff.
Obtained from that calculation is above what our elimination range is, but below what our positive association is. So therefore, we cannot reach a conclusion for that particular comparison.
And eliminated?
Eliminated is when the likelihood ratio is below our positive association, so we eliminate them, a negative likelihood ratio.
And just staying with lab submission 2S1 specifically.
Is clear to the jury. Just using a narrative form, Ms. Maydell, inconclusive means you can't tell, correct?
Correct. I can't eliminate and I can't do a positive association. There's no conclusion can be made for that particular comparison.
Thank you. Are there any questions based on the court's question?
No, Judge.
Thank you.
Staying with item 2S1, directing your attention on DNA supplemental report number 9. Did you do additional analysis with known profiles?
Yes, I made big one, sorry.
That's it. I know it's a lot.
So the conclusion I made in this report was 2 different knowns. So the conclusion is the same as the results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 2S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors with at least one of them being male. Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive whether Petros Dulos, Constantine Dulos, Christian Dulos, C. Noel Dulos, or Theodore Dulos.
Those are all the
be
children,
contributors to the DNA profile from item 2S1.
and they're all the children of the house.
The results do not support
Oh.
the hypothesis
Children of the
that Lauren
household.
Almeida is a contributor to this profile. Assuming 2 contributors, Lauren Almeida is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 2S1. And also Pavel Gumeni is eliminated as a contributor to the profile from 2S1.
This is paragraph 2 of State's Exhibit 27. State Police Exhibit 10, which was seized by Detective Matthew Riley from 69 Wells Lane on May 25th, 2019, and identified as 2 swabs from the scene in the interior handles of the mudroom back door, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission number 3. And this is in DNA supplemental report number 1. Can you tell the jury what the results of your analysis were for that particular item?
Do I have, it's supposed to be State's Exhibit number 27, you said?
Ms. Maydell, it'll be DNA supplemental report number 1, which is in front of you. State's Exhibit 27 is the stipulation that I made.
Oh, okay, sorry. Was lab item number 1?
Lab submission number 3.
Great, sorry. Yes, sorry, found it. That was bag with 2 swabs, and the sub item was called swabs from, quote, interior handles of mudroom back door.
And what were the results?
For item 3S1, there was no DNA profile detected.
What does that mean when no DNA profile is detected?
There just was not enough DNA there to detect a profile, so I have no results.
Publishing to the jury, Your Honor, photograph contained in State's Exhibit 9, Folder 3. This is photograph number 18, and it displays the garage door opener at 69 Wells Lane. This was identified as State Police Exhibit 11. 2 swabs of the exterior garage door opener open keypad from the center bay, and was subsequently designated as lab submission number 63. And I'm just reading from paragraph 3 of our stipulation.
And if you could read a little slower, please, Attorney McGinnis.
I'm sorry. I apologize, Your Honor. It was designated submission number 63. And for your benefit, Ms. Maydell, it's found in DNA supplemental reports number 2, 9, and 18. Was this given a sub-item as well?
Yes, so 63S1 was it designated swabs from, quote, garage door opener keypad.
And what were the results of the swabs from the garage door opener keypad?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 63S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. The results do not support the hypothesis that the source of the DNA from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush, Fotis Dulos, or Michelle Troconis are contributors to this profile. Assuming 2 contributors, the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the toothbrush, Fotis Dulos, and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from item 63S1.
Hmm.
And you did additional analysis in DNA supplemental number 9 with known profiles, is that correct?
Correct.
And what were the results after you had a chance to look at the other known profiles?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from 63S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 63S1 is at least 45,000 times more likely to occur if it originated from Lauren Almeida and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. The results do not support the hypothesis that C. Noel Dulos is a contributor to this profile. Assuming 2 contributors, C. Noel Dulos is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from 63S1. Petros Dulos, Konstantin Dulos, Christian Dulos, Theodore Dulos, and Pablo Gumini are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from item 63S1.
And just to sort of short circuit this, going forward, with the court's permission, if the other children are eliminated, you can just say the other Dulos children, or
Okay,
just to sort of streamline it.
sure.
I'm displaying for the court now State's Exhibit 9, folder number 2, picture 7, which shows the mud door handles, Your Honor. And with respect to the stipulation, it's agreed that this is State Police Exhibit 12. It was seized by Detective Riley and submitted to the State Forensic Laboratory as submission number 4. I'd like to talk to you about this DNA submission, if I could. Were swabbings taken of this particular object?
Yes,
And unlike some of the other objects where the swabs came in from the police department, Ms. Roy actually did these swabs, is that correct?
yes, that is correct.
And how many swabs did she take in total?
On my supplemental DNA report, I have 2, 4-1S1 and 4-1S2.
All right, and I'd also direct you to DNA sub 2. I believe there's also 4-1S3. And
Correct, yes,
4-1S4. So there were 4 swabs total taken of these?
yes.
Okay. Just beginning with the first swab, 4-1S1, what were the results for that swab? And this will be in DNA sub 1 and sub 9.
The results are consistent. The 4-1S1 was designated a reddish-brown ridge-like detail from front of knob. The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 4-1S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush could be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 4.1s1. The results do not support the hypothesis that Fotis Dulos is a contributor to this profile. Assuming 2 contributors, Fotis Dulos.
Hi.
Oh,
I'm
for
Nicole Hockley
God's
from Sandy Hook
sake,
Promise.
seriously.
I know this is hard to hear, but it's important. The shooter who murdered my son
Oh.
carried an AR-15 into an elementary school
Oh.
and killed 26 people in approximately 4 minutes. In those 4 minutes, he was able to shoot
Oh, I'm
150
sorry, I can't
rounds.
get rid of this.
5 of those bullets hit my 6-year-old son
Okay, we
Dylan,
know, we're
and in an
sad.
instant, my boy was gone.
I
Right
can't-
now,
come
Congress
on,
is
skip.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item, oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong one.
No,
4.1s1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Constantine Dulos could be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 4.1s1. The results do
don't
not support
know.
the hypothesis that Christine Dulos is a contributor. So
Christine-
assuming 2 contributors, Christine Dulos is eliminated. Results do not support the hypothesis that C. Noel Dulos is a contributor. Assuming 2 contributors, C. Noel Dulos is eliminated as a contributor.
Sounds like her
for
kids.
4.1s1. And then Petros Dulos, Theodore Dulos, Lauren Almeida, and Pavel Gumini are eliminated as contributors. to the
Eliminate
DNA
of the
profile.
doorknob.
And Jeff, with respect to 4.1s2, which was found in DNA sub 1, no profile was obtained, is that correct?
That is correct.
And with respect to 4.1s3, was that a swabbing of a doorknob and plate assembly with screws?
Yes, that's what it was designated.
And directing your attention now to DNA sub 2, what were the results?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 4.1s3, being a mixture of 3 contributors with at least one of them being male. Assuming 3 contributors, the DNA profile from item 4-1s3 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile of the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown individuals. Assuming 3 contributors, the DNA profile from item 4-1s3 is at least 330,000 times more likely to occur if it originated from Fotis Dulos and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown individuals. And Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 4-1s3.
She's not in the picture of this. Of this.
Attorney McGinnis, what the court is going to do is just ask a few questions so that it is clear what those numbers mean, but in a more narrative form. So, Ms. Maydell, when you indicated that certain, court is going to refer to it as likelihoods occur, when you use the numbers, would you explain in a narrative form what those numbers mean? So if someone is 45,000 times more likely to be X, what does that mean?
Well, it's a likelihood ratio that, given the evidence is more likely to occur if hypothesis 1 is true compared to hypothesis 2.
So would you rephrase it using those numbers?
So for the given evidence, it would be 100 times more likely, 100 billion times more likely, as an example, for hypothesis 1 to be true compared to what hypothesis 2 is.
So it's a
Okay, Mommy, see you
comparison
later.
of the hypotheses.
Yes, only one of them can be true. So if that evidence is more likely to occur if the first hypothesis is true compared to the second hypothesis.
Thank you.
I believe you indicated for 41S3, it was 330,000 times more likely that Fotis Dulos was a contributor to the profile than if it were 3 unknown people. Is that correct?
330,000 times, yes.
And I'll just note, I think that's a misstatement of what the odds are. I think this is what they call the fallacy. It is odds of one thing occurring versus another, not that it's that person.
Well, what the court understood from Ms. Maydell's explanation is that we're comparing hypotheses. We're not talking about identification.
And just directing your attention on DNA supplemental report number 9, you again ran those additional knowns against the DNA profile from 41S3. And if you're ready, what were the results?
Sure. The results are consistent with the DNA profile from 41S3 being a mixture of 3 contributors, with at least one of them being male. The source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is assumed to be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 41S3. Assuming 3 contributors, where the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the toothbrush is one of the contributors, the DNA profile from item 41S3 is at least 900,000 times more likely to occur if it originated from Fotis Dulos, the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush, and one unknown individual than if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 2 unknown individuals. Assuming 3 contributors, where the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is one of the contributors, the DNA profile from item 41S3 is at least 160,000 more times likely to occur if it originated from Petros Dulos, the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the toothbrush, and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from the source of the toothbrush and 2 unknown individuals. Assuming 3 contributors, where the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is one of the contributors, the DNA profile from item 41S3 is at least 30,000 times more likely to occur if it originated from C. Noel Dulos, the source of the DNA profile from the electric toothbrush, and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 2 unknown individuals. Assuming 3 contributors, where the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is one of the contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Konstantin Dulos, Christian Dulos, Theodore Dulos, and Pavel Gumeni could be contributors to the DNA profile from item 41S3. Lauren Almeida is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 41S3.
I want to talk to you about 41S3 for a second. In DNA supplemental 9, you assume that the profile from the toothbrush was a contributor. Can you just explain to the jury when you assume that a particular profile is a contributor to another profile? What does that mean?
So it's called conditioning. And when there's a scientific, reasonable expectation scientifically that a person's DNA could be on that item, it is sometimes better to assume that person so you can get a more accurate likelihood ratio to the other contributors that are contributing to that DNA profile. So after I did the first report where I compared the toothbrush and Fotis to the swabbing of the doorknob and plate and saw that they were both contributors, knowing that I'm going to now compare the children to that profile, because the children get half their DNA from their mother and half their DNA from their father, it's a given that those profiles are going to be there, because if they're contributing, then the children are going to have a likelihood ratio. So in order to give a more accurate likelihood ratio to if the children are the children are contributing to that profile, we went and assumed the toothbrush because she's scientifically expected to be on that doorknob because that is her house.
The time is now 11:15. Ladies and gentlemen, we will take our morning recess. The court should indicate to you today that we will conclude today's session at 3 o'clock. So we ask that you retire to the deliberation room and please do not discuss the case. We'll resume at 11:30.
All right. This Honorable Superior Court now stands in recess.
Hmm. 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 I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Well, so if I were hearing from the DNA expert on the trial. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We are on a break. The court is on a break. A 15-minute break. They'll be back about 11:30 their time. So I'd guess, depending on what your time is. So if you can pop in and say hello. I feel like I'm just talking to dead air. I'm going to see 4 of you in here. Anybody else want to talk besides me? Oh, I shouldn't have said that. God. All right. The court is on break for 15 minutes. They should be back at 11:30. God only knows when they'll be back. Yeah, so people are just coming in and out. And, to be honest with you, I don't know what else to talk about. And the court is on break right now, so they should be back around 11:30 their time, which is Eastern time. So if you just popped in, let me know that I'm not the only one that's talking right now, because I feel like I'm talking to dead air. Yeah, if you just pop in and say hello, good morning, whatever, that'd be great. Or we could just sit here and be quiet.
Please be seated.
Before the jury comes out, I would just note, if we had a sidebar, there was a previous motion regarding motion in limine regarding the question about what did inconclusive mean. It was clarified by the state, but the state started getting into it knowing that there was a motion in limine again. The court did some clarification, and as far as I'm concerned, that was fine. But I would ask the state to realize that if I file a motion to eliminate, it's because there's an issue that should be resolved. So we don't have to do sidebar, and it doesn't require the court's intervention. Maybe he was inadvertent on Mr. McGinnis's part. I'm just raising it because we have a moment to do so.
Well, the record has to reflect that the court did act on the motion. The motion is denied, but that denial in this court's view is not to the prejudice of the defense, because the court has the opportunity to ask questions which would allow the jury not to be confused. For example, this goes back to yesterday's discussion, the likelihood ratio. The likelihood ratio is simply a ratio of compared hypotheses. And so if the jury did not understand that previously, hopefully the jury understands that now. Are we ready to proceed?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. We can bring the jury back in, please. Okay, will counsel stipulate?
Yes, Judge.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Attorney McGinnis.
Good morning again. Ms. Madell, I just wanted to ask you, when we were talking about hypotheses earlier, hypothesis 1 versus hypothesis 2, could you just explain to the jury in a little more detail what that means from your perspective? Does it mean it's one or the other? What exactly does that mean?
When we're creating these hypotheses, it's to describe how likely the evidence is to occur. Is it more likely to occur when hypothesis 1 is true compared to hypothesis 2?
So it's not an either or scenario.
No, it's if number 1 is true compared to what number 2 is.
Were there a number of results in this case in which you concluded that the contributor to the profile was a single female individual, and that it was 100 billion more times more likely to be the profile on the toothbrush, and everyone else was eliminated?
Yes, there is a bunch of those samples.
All right, I'd like to talk to you about those if I could. If we can call up Exhibit 15, or a photograph of State Police Exhibit 15, which is found in State Trial Exhibit 9, folder number 3, photograph 13. And just for the record, Your Honor, State Police Exhibit 15 was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain seized from the scene, the handle under the sink cabinet door, kitchen island, and subsequently designated as submission 6. Were these results consistent with being a single female and the results being 100 billion times more likely to be the profile found on the toothbrush?
Yes.
If we can call up State Police Exhibit 35, which was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, G19, seized from the scene and submitted to the lab as submission 102. Were these the same results, being a single female 100 billion times more likely to result if it was the DNA profile obtained from the toothbrush as opposed to an unknown individual?
Yes, single female individual, yes.
We can call State Police Exhibit number 36. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, G20, seized from the scene and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services as submission 103. Same results. And that's DNA sub 7 and sub 10.
Yep. Yes.
Staying with DNA sub 7 and 10 for your benefit, Ms. Maydell, if we can call up State Police Exhibit number 36, 37. And this was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, C2, KM positive, seized from the scene, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 104. Was it the same result, Ms. Maydell?
Yes.
If we can call up State Police Exhibit 38, photograph of that. And this was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, B3, seized from the scene, North Bay, and submitted to the state lab as submission number 105. Were the results the same, a single female?
Yes.
And just to be clear, a single female 100 billion times more likely to be the profile obtained from the toothbrush. Is that correct?
Correct.
And everyone else was eliminated?
Correct.
If we can call up a photograph of State Police Exhibit number 39. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, B11, seized from the scene, KM positive, North Bay, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services as submission 106. What were the results of this?
The same as the previous result. Single female, assuming 1 individual, the DNA profile from item 106S1 is 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the. Sorry. Assuming 1 individual, the DNA profile from item 101S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from a swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual.
We can call up State Police Exhibit number 41. Photograph of that.
Well, Your Honor, I note that the witness skipped the last sentence of her finding on that particular item. I just ask that you read the remaining sentence.
Well, Attorney McGinnis, is there another sentence that was not read from the conclusion?
I'm unclear, Judge. I'm assuming he's referring to everyone being eliminated? Everyone else being
The court
eliminated?
does not know because the court does not have the exhibit.
So these results that we're going through now are consistent with the profile of the, that you obtained from the toothbrush being 100 billion times more likely to be the source of these profiles. Is that correct?
Versus an unknown profile.
Right. And everyone else has been eliminated. These results are all the same, correct?
Correct so far.
We can call up a photograph of State Police Exhibit 41. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, A18, KM positive, seized from the scene, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as item 108. Were these results the same as your previous answer?
Yes.
We could call up State Police Exhibit number 45.
Thank you for joining me.
This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, KM positive, seized from the scene, Center Bay, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 109. Is the results of this test the same?
Yes.
If we could call up State Police number 48. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain KM positive seized from the scene, Center Bay, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 112. Were the results here the same?
Yes.
If we could call up State Police Exhibit 59. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain KM positive seized from the scene, garage 2014 Land Rover, left side of the hood, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 118. Were the results of this the same?
Yes.
If we could call up Exhibit 60. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain KM positive seized from the scene, garage 2014 Land Rover, left front corner of bumper, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services as submission 119. Were the results here the same?
Yes.
If we could call up State Police photograph 61. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, KM positive seized from the scene, garage 2014 Land Rover, exterior side of left front door, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 8. Were the results of the analysis here the same? And that's in DNA Sup 1 and Sup 9.
Yes.
If we can call up State Police Exhibit 62. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain KM positive seized from the garage 2014 Land Rover, exterior side left rear door, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 121. Were the results of this test the same?
Yes.
We can call up State Police Exhibit 63. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, KM positive, seized from the scene, 2014 Land Rover, left rear fender, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 120. Were the results of this test the same?
Yes.
If we can call up State Police Exhibit 64. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't think we have a photograph of 64. State Police Exhibit 64 was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, KM positive, seized from the scene, east wall of garage, north of door to mudroom. Were the results of that test the same?
So which item number for the lab?
Oh, I apologize. Submission 122.
Yes.
We can call up State Police Exhibit 65. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, KM positive, seized from the scene, south side of garage, top corner of garbage can western, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 9. Were the results of this test the same? And that's in DNA Sup 1 and Sup 9.
Yes.
If we can call up State Police Exhibit 66. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, KM positive, seized from the scene, south side of garage, top corner of garbage can eastern, and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 123. Were the results of this test the same?
Yes.
If we can call up State Police Exhibit 78. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, KM positive, seized from the scene, kitchen island countertop edge north of sink, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 10. Were the results of this test the same?
Yes.
If we can call up State Police Exhibit 320. This was identified as suspected biological matter E, seized from the scene, garage 2014 Land Rover, lower edge, left front door, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 132. Were the results of this test the same?
Yes.
If we can return to State Police Exhibit number 13. I don't know if I talked about this one yet. This was identified as 1 used paper towel roll with blood-like stains, KM positive, seized from the scene, kitchen island countertop east of sink, and subsequently submitted as submission 101. Were the results of this the same? This is from DNA sub 7 and 10.
You said number 110?
101.
101. Correct, yes.
If we could call up State Police Exhibit 14. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, KM positive, seized from the scene, kitchen sink, faucet spout, and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 5. Can you let us know what the results were of this? This is from DNA Sup 1 and 9.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 5S1, being a mixture of 2 contributors with at least one of them being male. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 5S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 5S1 is at least 4.3 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from Fotis Dulos and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 5S1.
And directing your attention now to DNA Supplemental Report number 9, did you reanalyze this profile and assume that the profile from the toothbrush was a contributor?
Yes, again, knowing from this first report that it was a 2-person mixture and it looked like a mixture of the parents of the children, I went and created a new hypothesis to make that second contributor more discriminating. So I ran the children
I'm
all
back.
against that first deconvolution of the
listening.
2-person mixture in order to determine who had the highest likelihood ratio between the toothbrush and the 5 children. So then I could then assume one of them and make a comparison to that second person. So after I did that, the toothbrush had the highest likelihood ratio as being a contributor. And when you assume somebody on a profile, it increases the likelihood ratios of true contributors but it will decrease the likelihood ratio of non-contributors. So it is a scientifically sound conclusion to do. So after I did that, then I made my conclusions in supplemental 9.
And what were the conclusions?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 5S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors with one of them being male. The source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is assumed to be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 5S1. Assuming 2 contributors, where the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is one of the contributors, the DNA profile from 5S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from Fotis Dulos and the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and one unknown individual. Petros Dulos, Constantine Dulos, Christiane Dulos, C. Noel Dulos, Theodore Dulos, Laura Almeida, and Pablo Gumini are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from 5S1.
So all the other known profiles that you had, including the defendant, were eliminated. Is that correct?
Yes, after I assume the toothbrush as a contributor to the profile, the children are eliminated and cannot be the second contributor.
If we can call up State Police Exhibit 40. And this was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, A15 KM positive, seized from the scene North Bay, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services as submission 107. And this is found in DNA supplemental reports 7 and 10 for your benefit.
Hello, welcome to my channel.
What were
We're
the results
watching,
of your analysis here?
here, let me pull this up and I'll tell you who's on the stand right now.
107S1, you said?
Sorry, I've been quiet. I've just been trying to
The results are consistent with the DNA
look
profile
into this.
from item
Okay, on the stand is
107S1 being a mixture
Michelle,
of 2
she's a
contributors.
forensic science.
Assuming 2
examiner.
contributors, the DNA profile from item
Kind of interesting
107S1 is at
and
least 100 billion times more
giving
likely
me a
to
little bit
occur
of an idea.
if it originated from the source of the DNA problem
So, never popped
profile
in.
from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush
Say hi.
and one
I'm
unknown
just talking to
individual
a
than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals.
Just be honest with
Due
you
to the
guys, I
limited
really
data
do.
detected from item 107S1, the comparison to Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are inconclusive.
It's like talking to myself.
What does that mean when you say due to limited data?
So this is was designated a 2-person mixture. So
2%
the major
mixture.
profile being so I probably had a major profile with a minor profile. So looking at the toothbrushes being 100 billion times more likely, that was the major profile in the within that 2-person. And there was only one, probably, I don't want to speak without seeing the actual data, one peak that wasn't attributed from that DNA profile from the toothbrush. And Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis have that peak, so I can't say conclusively if they're a contributor or not, but I can't eliminate them either.
They had that peak. Fotis and Michelle had that peak.
If we can call up State Police Exhibit 42.
And she's not going to eliminate them. She's not totally eliminated in this.
This was identified as a fragment of a paper towel with a blood-like stain and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as item 65 or submission 65, I should say. And for your benefit, Ms. Maydell, this is found in DNA sub reports 3 and 9.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the number?
65.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 65S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 65S1 is at least 2.5 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and one unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from item 65S1.
And in fact, all known other profiles were eliminated. Is that correct?
Let me just double check. What was the other report?
Sup 9?
And I'm going to object as mischaracterization. If I may just have a moment.
Oh, I apologize.
Well, sustained.
I apologize, Your Honor. If you could just read the results when you compared it to the other knowns.
Sure. The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 65S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive whether Theodore Dulos could be a contributor to the DNA profile from 65S1. The other children, Lauren Almeida, Pavel Gumini, are all eliminated as contributors to 65S1.
If we can call up State Police Exhibit 43. And this was identified as a fragment of a paper towel with a blood-like stain and submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 66. And this can be found in DNA reports 3 and 9.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 66S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 66S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from 66S1.
And was there additional swabbing of the paper towel that was designated as 66S2? I'm sorry. S.
Yeah, there was a 66S2 and 66S3.
Okay. So can you just indicate to the results of 66S2, which was identified as swabbing of paper towel side A?
There was no DNA profile detected.
And similarly, the results for 66S3, the swabbing of the paper towel side B?
No DNA profile detected.
If we can call State Police Exhibit 44.
I didn't do the results for 66S1 against the children.
Oh, I apologize.
That's okay.
If I could just have a moment. Yes, if you could tell us the results of 66S1.
So the results are consistent with the DNA profile from 66S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Petros Dulos, Konstantin Dulos, Christiane Dulos, C. Noel Dulos, or Theodore Dulos could be contributors to the DNA profile from 66S1. Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumini are eliminated as contributors to the profile from 66S1.
If we could bring up State Police Exhibit 44. This was identified as a fragment of a paper towel with a blood-like stain and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as item submission number 67. And there were actually 2 separate
A paper towel?
analysis of this particular item. There was a fragment of the paper towel and then there was a swabbing of the paper towel. Is that correct?
Yes, 67S1 and 67S2.
Okay, so let's start with 67S1, which was actually a fragment of the paper towel. What
Paper
were the results
towel.
for that?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 67S1 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from 67S1 is at least 1 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as the source of 67S1.
And directing your attention now to supplemental report number 9, the Dulos children, as well as Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gloomy were also eliminated. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what were the results of 67S2, which was a swabbing of this paper towel fragment?
No DNA profile was detected.
If we can call up state police. Actually, I don't believe we have a photograph of 46, but state police 46 is identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain KM positive seized from the scene North Bay, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 110. And for your benefit, Ms. Maydell, it's found in DNA supplemental reports number 7 and 10. Could you indicate to the jury what the results were?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 110S1 originating from a single individual. Assuming one individual, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush could be the source of the DNA profile from item 110S1. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from item 110S1.
And then when you had an opportunity to test that profile against additional knowns in DNA supplemental report 10, what was your conclusion?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 110S1 originating from a single individual. Assuming one individual, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Petros Dulos, Konstantin Dulos, Christiane Dulos, C. Noel Dulos, or Theodore Dulos could be the source of the DNA profile from item 110S1. Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumini are eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from 110S1.
We can call up State Police 47. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, KM negative, seized from the scene, Center Bay, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 111. And Ms. Maydell, for your benefit, these results are found in supplemental reports 7 and 10.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 111S1 originating from a single individual. The source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from item 111S1. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are also eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from item 111S1.
And then when you did additional comparison to the other knowns in DNA supplemental report number 10?
Assuming one individual, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive to whether Petros Dulos, Christiane Dulos, or Theodore Dulos could be a source of the DNA profile from item 111S1. Konstantin Dulos, C. Noel Dulos, Lauren Almeida, and Pavel Gumini are eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from item 111S1.
If we can call up State Police number 49. State Police number 49 was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, KM negative, seized from the scene, Center Bay, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 113. What were the results of this?
No DNA profile was detected.
If I could just have one moment with counsel. If we can call up State Police Exhibit 50. This is identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain KM negative seized from the scene, Center Bay, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 114. And this is in DNA reports 7 and 10 for your benefit, Ms. Maydell. Could you just indicate to the jury what the results were here?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 114S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors, with at least one of them being male. Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush could be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 114S1. Fotis Dulos is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 114S1. The results do not support the hypothesis that Michelle Troconis is a contributor to this profile. Assuming 2 contributors, Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 114S1.
And then when you did additional comparisons of the knowns in DNA supplemental report number 10, were all the other known profiles eliminated, the Dulos children, Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumimi?
Correct, yes.
She wasn't there. Michelle was not in the scene at all, is what I'm getting
We
from
can
all
call up
this.
State Police number 51.
Nowhere. But that doesn't mean she wasn't involved, but it's just,
State Police 51 is identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, KM positive seized from the scene, South Bay, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission number 115. And Ms. Maydell, this is also in report 7 and 10. Can you indicate to the jury what the results were?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 115S1 being a mixture of 3 contributors, with at least one of them being, assuming 3 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated. The results are inconclusive as to whether the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush could be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 115S1. The results do not support the hypothesis that Fotis Dulos or Michelle Troconis are contributors to this profile. Assuming 3 contributors, Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from 115S1.
And DNA supplemental report number 10, when you had the benefit of doing additional known comparison?
Yes. The results are consistent with the DNA profile from 115S1 being a mixture of 3 contributors, with at least one of them being male. Petros Dulos, Konstantin Dulos, Christian Dulos, and Pavel Gumeni are eliminated as contributors to the profile from item 115S1. Assuming 3 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether C. Noel Dulos could be a contributor to the DNA profile from 115S1. And the results do not support the hypothesis that Theodore Dulos or Laura Almeida are contributors to this profile. Assuming 3 contributors, Theodore Dulos and Lauren Almeida are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from 115S1.
If we can call up State Police number 52. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain KM negative seized from the scene, South Bay, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 116. What were the results of this? DNA sub 7.
No DNA profile was detected.
If we could call up State Police number 53. This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain KM positive seized from the scene, South Bay, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 117. And again, these results can be found in 7 and 10, Ms. Maydell.
Yes.
Would you just indicate to the jury what the results were?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 117S1 being a mixture of two contributors. Due to the limited data detected from 117S1, the comparison to the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing electric toothbrush and Michelle Troconis are inconclusive. Fotis Dulos is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 117S1.
And then when you had the benefit of comparing additional knowns,
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 117S1 being a mixture of two contributors. Petros Dulos, Konstantin Dulos, Christiane Dulos, and Theodore Dulos are eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 117S1. Due to the limited data detected from 117S1, the comparisons to C. Noel Dulos, Laura Almeida, and Pavel Gumeni are inconclusive.
we could call up State Police 67. And this was identified as two swabs of a blood-like stain, KM positive, seized from the scene, interior side of north garage door, and subsequently submitted to Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission number 68. And this is for your benefit, Ms. Maydell, can be found in DNA reports 2 and 9. Beginning with report 2, what were your conclusions?
So what was the number again? Item number?
68.
68. The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 68S1 being a mixture of two contributors. Assuming two contributors, the DNA profile from item 68S1 is at least 810 million times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and one unknown individual than if it originated from two unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from item 68S1.
And now directing your attention to DNA supplemental report number 9.
Okay, so Michelle and Fotis was eliminated. Okay. Sorry, everybody. It's just kind of a dry day. If you're on here, thank you for joining me and thank you for sticking around.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 68S1 being a mixture of two contributors. Assuming two contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Petros Dulos, Konstantin Dulos, Christiane Dulos, C. Noel Dulos, or Theodore Dulos could be contributors to the DNA profile from item 68S1. Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumeni are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from item 68S1.
Two swabs of a blood-like stain KM positive seized from the scene, the kitchen sink faucet handle, and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services.
Hello, welcome to my channel.
11. And this can be found in DNA supplemental report number 1 and 9, Ms. Maydell.
If you're just joining in, thank you for stopping by.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 11S1 originating from a single individual. Assuming one individual, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush could be the source of the DNA profile from item 11S1.
On. Goodbye.
Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from item 11S1.
And then directing your attention now, DNA supplemental report number 9. You have the benefit of doing additional comparisons with knowns.
Yes. The results are consistent with the profile from 11S1 originating from a single individual. Assuming one individual, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive to whether Petros Dulos, Konstantin Dulos, Christiane Dulos, C. Noel Dulos, and Theodore Dulos could be the source of the DNA profile from 11S1. Lauren Almeida and Pablo Gumini are eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from 11S1.
If we can call up State Police Exhibit 319. State Police 319 was identified as suspected biological matter D, seized from the scene, 2014 Land Rover, left front fender, and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 131. Then directing your attention to DNA supplemental reports 7 and 10. Could you indicate to the jury what the results were?
Sorry, what was the number again?
131.
31.
Hello. Welcome, welcome. DNA
The results
samples.
are consistent with the DNA profile from item 131S1, originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 131S1 is 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual.
Unknown.
And were Fotis Dulos and the defendant eliminated?
Yes.
And in DNA supplemental report number 10, were the Dulos children, Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumini, eliminated as well?
Yes, correct.
What was this? Let me see. Okay, it's the car.
If we could call up just State Police Exhibit 12 for one moment. I think we've talked about the fact that there were 4 separate swabbings of this, and I think we got through 1S1 through 1S3. I wanted to just talk to you about the results of 1S4.
Doorknobs.
That's identified as the swabbing of a doorknob and plate assembly without screws.
1S4?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay.
And this is found in DNA subs 2 and 9 for your benefit, Ms. Nadel. Could you just indicate to the jury what the results were?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 4-1S4 being a mixture of 4 contributors, with at least one of them being male. Assuming 4 contributors, the DNA profile from item 4-1S4 is at least 1 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 3 unknown individuals than if it originated from 4 unknown individuals. The results do not support a hypothesis that Fotis Dulos is a contributor to this profile. Assuming 4 contributors, Fotis Dulos is eliminated as a contributor to the profile from item 4-1S4. Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 4-1S4.
And when you did the additional comparisons?
They wore gloves.
Assuming 4 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Petros Dulos, Konstantin Dulos, C. Noel Dulos, or Theodore Dulos could be contributors to the DNA profile from item 4-1S4. Assuming 4 contributors, the DNA profile from item 4-1S4 is at least 130,000 times more likely to occur if it originated from Christiane Dulos and 3 unknown individuals than if it originated from 4 unknown individuals. Lauren Almeida and Pablo Gumini are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from item 4-1S4.
I'm now going to shift, Your Honor. I'm going to be publishing things from State's Exhibit 28, which is the stipulation regarding evidence seized from Jennifer Dulos' Chevy Suburban. Ms. Maydell, you recall approximately 45 minutes to an hour ago, we talked about results in which there was a single female contributor, and it was 100 billion times more likely to have occurred if it was the profile that you obtained from the toothbrush as opposed to an unknown individual. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes,
All right. And in those instances, everyone else, all the other knowns were eliminated. Is that correct?
that is correct, yes.
All right. I want to just direct your attention now, if we can call up State Police Exhibit 105. This is identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain KM positive taken from the rear bumper step of a 2017 Chevrolet Suburban and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as item 124. Were those the same results that we were just discussing? This can be found in DNA Supplemental Report number 7 and 10.
Yes, that is correct.
And if we can call up 106. Same results. I'm sorry, let me publish. This is State Police Exhibit 106, identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain taken from the exterior side of the right rear door and submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission number 15. Were these the same results, Ms. Maydell?
Which report was that?
Oh, DNA Supplemental Report number 1 and 9.
S1, yes.
And if we can call up State Police 107. This is identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain KM positive taken from the running board under the right front door and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 100 and the steps. If I could just have one moment, Your Honor. If I could just have a moment, Attorney Schoenhorn. I think I have this first. If I could just have one moment, Attorney Schoenhorn. Your Honor, I apologize. I just had a scrivener's error. State Police 107 is identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain KM positive taken from the running board under the right front door, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 125. With respect to this, are these the same results, meaning 100 billion times more likely to originate from the profile obtained from the electric toothbrush than an unknown profile, and all other known individuals to you were eliminated?
Yes.
If we could call up State Police Exhibit 120. This is identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain, KM positive, taken from submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission number 70. Same results,
Report.
DNA sub 3 and 9.
Correct.
We could call up State Police number 316. This was identified as 2 swabs from Area A, subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 100. I'm sorry? Oh, we don't have 316? Okay.
Should I have a moment with counsel for a brief moment?
Hello, whoever just joined in. Thanks.
Laura, may we just take a 5-minute recess so I can get the defense?
All right, 5-minute recess.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please retire to the deliberation room and please do not discuss the case.
If you're just walking in, we have a DNA expert. Try to find her. I did put her name up here before. Anyway, if you just came in, yeah, it'd be nice for you to say hello. I feel like I'm all alone today. I do. I feel like I'm just alone today. I feel like I'm the only one here. And I know there's 4 of you. Hot coffee just feels abandoned today. Oh, whatever. I'm whining. It's just one of those days. Okay, so they're taking a 5-minute recess. They want to approach. They want to talk about something. I do have a few notes on this too. So, all right, if you just joined in, do you have any questions about what was going on with this witness? Okay. All right. When they break for lunch, I think I will be ending the broadcasts for the day, and I will come back tomorrow if there's court. If not, I'll be back on Monday. So when they're going to take their lunch break, I will be ending my live stream for the day. So, yeah, I think so. I think that'd be a good thing to do, and that way we can just come back and regroup. And I think so, Lorianne.
Sweetie, your Reuben's ready.
I think I might do that for the day. I haven't decided yet, but this court is going to end at 3:00 today, so I just thinking about it. Doesn't mean I'm actually going to do it. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I'm eating lunch. They're gonna leave. They're gonna end this early today. This court around 3:00. So I don't know how this is going to look like today. Sorry, I'm eating. I'm eating a Reuben sandwich. So it looks like it's going to be a short court day anyway. Mhm. All right, who's in here? Come on, you guys. Say hi. I know Lorianne's here. All right, I'm going to put me off camera. I'll still talk. I don't want everybody watching me eat. If they're watching. Right now, we are waiting for the court to come back on again. They are doing they took the jury out of the courtroom, and it looks like they're discussing things probably about the DNA. And we know that this attorney is questioning the DNA left and right. So that's what's going on right now. So I apologize for hardly no content today. Some days are like that. And I've been trying to entertain the troops, failing miserably. And it's just one of those days, I suppose. I don't know why they're ending so early, to be honest. But I'll go on until the end. I won't end this live stream. Now that you're here, Lori. I need somebody to keep company. Okay, they're coming back. So, Lori, the DNA. Interesting things that I've discovered.
Well, the court understands that the jury room is being provided air conditioning.
Oh.
So, court is
Keeps them
just
awake.
going to indicate to the jury that we will address that in about 15 minutes.
Air conditioning?
We can bring the jury in.
Okay, bring the jury in. Air conditioning. Okay. All right, Lorianne, this is a person who is on the stand right now. It is Kristen Madell, whatever how you spell her last name. She is a forensic science examiner, and she's been saying some
Ladies and gentlemen, the
stuff, a little dry,
court understands that
but it is interesting.
it's quite cold in the deliberation room. We'll address that at lunch and recess. Will counsel stipulate to the presence of all of the jurors?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. You may proceed, counsel.
Ms. Madell, where we left off, we were discussing State Police Exhibit 316, which was seized from the Chevy Suburban and identified as 2 swabs from Area A and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 128. For your benefit, this is DNA reports 7 and 10. What were the results?
Number 128 is the same as what we were previously talking about. Single female individual, assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 128S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. And everyone else is eliminated.
And if we can bring up State Police Exhibit 317. No, okay, I apologize. Submission or State Police Exhibit 317 was identified as 2 swabs from Area B from the Chevy Suburban and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission number 129. Same results?
Yes.
State Police Exhibit 318, which was identified as 2 swabs from Area C of the Chevy Suburban and designated as submission 130. Same results?
Yes.
State Police Exhibit 99 is identified as 2 swabs taken of the top half of the steering wheel and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services as submission number 12. And for your benefit, Ms. Madell, this is in reports 1 and 9. What were the results?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 12S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 12S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush in 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive to whether Fotis Dulos could be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 12S1. Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item.
Michelle has
12S1.
been eliminated in all
And
the
directing your attention to
DNA
DNA
testing with the
supplemental
crime
report
scene
number
so
9.
far. That doesn't mean she
It's my
wasn't
understanding
involved,
that
in
with
my
the exception
opinion.
of Theodore, the Dulos children, Lauren
Means she
Almeida,
wasn't
and Pavel
there.
Glemy were
Like I
eliminated.
said, she could have been there. There was a couple of things that they couldn't identify.
That is correct. The low likelihood ratio is calculated. The results are inconclusive whether Theodore Dulos could be a contributor to the profile of 12S1.
State Police Exhibit 100.
Could I just have a moment with counsel?
Another moment. I had some coffee snaps earlier. I had to dismiss myself.
I apologize.
That's fine.
I'm not going to show them on
State Police Exhibit
camera.
100, which was identified as 2 swabs taken from the bottom half of the steering wheel and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services as submission number 13. And this is in DNA reports 1 and 9, Ms. Madell.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 13S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 13S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 13S1.
And DNA supplemental report number 9. My understanding is that the Dulos children and Pavel Glemy were eliminated and the results were inconclusive as to Lauren Almeida. Is that correct?
That is correct.
State Police Exhibit 101, which was identified as 2 swabs taken from the gear shift and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services as submission number 14. And this is found in reports 1 and 9, Madell.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 14S1 originating from a single female individual. Assuming 1 individual, the DNA profile from item 14S1 is at least 780,000 more times likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. Fotis
Unknown.
Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from 14S1.
Can it be because they wore gloves?
And in DNA supplemental report number 9, you concluded that all the Dulos children, Lauren Almeida and Pavel Glemy, were eliminated. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We can call up State Police Exhibit 108.
I don't know. Just a thought.
This was identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like smudge, KM positive, taken from the exterior side of the right front door and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 126. And Ms. Madell, for your benefit, this can be found in DNA's reports 7 and 10. Could you just indicate what the results were?
Can you repeat the number again? 126.
6?
Hello, welcome to my chat
Results are
room.
consistent
Thanks
with the
for coming
DNA
in.
profile from item 126
We have
being
an expert for
S1
DNA
being a
right
mixture
now.
of 2
A little
contributors.
dry today.
Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item
I like DNA.
126S1 is at least 11 million times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and one unknown individual than if it originated from two unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from number 126S1.
They're eliminated, Michelle and Doodles.
And in DNA supplemental report number 10, I believe you concluded that given the low likelihood ratios, the results were inconclusive as the Dulos children. However, Lauren Almeida and Pavel Guemi were eliminated. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
State Police Exhibit number 113. This was identified as two swabs of a latent smudge from the exterior side of the tailgate and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission number 16. And this is in reports 1 and 9 for your benefit, Ms. Maydell.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 16S1 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush could be the source of the DNA profile from item 16S1. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as the source of the profile from item 16S1.
And in DNA supplemental report number 9, you concluded that all the Dulos children, Lauren Almeida and Pavel.
I still think they wore
eliminated. Is that
gloves.
correct?
Were you taking a show up if you wore gloves? So does this mean there's two unknown?
That is correct, yes.
From the toothbrush.
State Police Exhibit number 119. This was identified as two swabs taken from the garage door opener on the driver's side visor and subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission number 69. And it's found in reports 3 and 9, Ms. Maydell.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 69S1 being a mixture of 3 contributors with at least one of them being male. Assuming 3 contributors, the DNA profile from item 69S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown individuals. The results do not support the hypothesis that Fotis Dulos is a contributor to this profile. Assuming 3 contributors, Fotis Dulos is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 69S1. And the results also do not support the hypothesis that Michelle Troconis is a contributor to this profile. Assuming 3 contributors, Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from 69S1.
And in DNA supplemental report number 9, you concluded that Lauren Almeida, Pavel Guemi were eliminated. You also concluded that all of the children, with the exception of Constantine Dulos, was eliminated. And with respect to Constantine Dulos, you concluded that assuming 3 contributors, it was 210,000 times more likely to occur if Constantine Dulos was a contributor with 2 unknowns as opposed to 3 unknowns. Is that correct?
Christiane Dulos?
Christiane Dulos, excuse me.
Yes. Constantine's eliminated. Christiane is the 210,000 more times likely.
If we can pull up states 121. This is identified as 2 swabs of a blood-like stain KM positive taken from the cargo area floor and subsequently designated as submission number 17. and this is in reports 1 and 9 for your benefit, Ms. Maydell. What were the results of this?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 17S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 17S1 is at least 31,000 times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and one unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from 17S1.
Senator McGinnis, we are going to take our lunch and recess at this time.
Judge, I'm sorry, may I just finish up with this one exhibit? Just one more question.
Well, remember, we are only going to be here an hour at 2 o'clock. So you may finish.
Thank you. And just continuing on to supplemental report number 9. What was your conclusion?
Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Petros Dulos, Konstantin Dulos, Christiane Dulos, C. Noel Dulos, or Theodore Dulos could be a contributor to the DNA profile from 17S1. And Lauren Almeida and Pablo Gumini are eliminated as contributors to 17S1.
Thank you, Judge.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will attempt to address the frigid conditions in your deliberation room. And we'll resume at 2 o'clock. We will only have an hour this afternoon before we adjourn.
Okay,
Please
so,
discuss the case and have a good one.
okay, I have 5 of you in here and I want to take a vote. Do you want to come back within an hour? Press 1. If you want to adjourn for the day, and let's all just take a break from court, press 2. Please vote. If not, no votes, I will decide within a few minutes. Come on, I got 5 of you. Gonna know. Two, adjourn for the day. Okay. All right. Who else? So far, 2. I'm going with 2. Who else? How about you, Lorianne? Got 5 of you in here. I think it'd be a good time. Just everybody do their own thing and just relax. Do you want to stay, Lori? Lori, either one. I don't think John would be joining us today. I haven't heard from him, so I'm going to assume he's busy doing something. It's just one of those days where people are just scattered and I don't know. Lorianne? Okay, you're good with whatever we decide. Okay, why don't we just go ahead and adjourn for the day? I think I need to take a break from all this. It's just going to be a very long trial. We can all catch up later and, we'll just regroup some other time. And I think that would probably be the best thing to do. So, thank you everyone for joining me today. It's been a very dry courtroom day, but I have learned a few things with the DNA, but we'll go over that later. And we will, yes, it would be good for me too. And I really do need some time off a little bit from this. And I just need a break because I have other things I love doing. Are they in tomorrow? I don't know. But you know what I'll do is I'll come in and do a quick live to let everybody know if they're in or not. As far as I know, I don't know. I have no idea if they're going to be in Friday or not tomorrow. But today is going to be a short day. And yeah, it would be good for me and everybody else involved in this trial. So with that, everybody who is in the cold, frigid air like I am, stay warm. Oh, you're welcome. I enjoy doing it, but sometimes it gets a little frustrating to me when I feel like I'm just talking to dead air. But hey, that's just part of my volunteer job. Anyway, yeah. So, anybody have any questions? Last coffee chat. Thank you. Any famous last words? If not, we don't have last smoke. We don't have John. Anyway, all right. So everyone, have a great day. I am going to adjourn myself, and I just, it's an interesting trial, but it's going to be a long trial. So there are days we're just going to have to walk away. Yeah. Hi, Rocky Shore. So I'm sorry, Rocky, but we are going to end for the day, and hopefully you'll come back. And yeah, maybe John can post to X to get numbers. What do you mean by that? Yeah, Rocky, you just joined us, and this is just quite an interesting case. And if you like, we did. John and I did a live last night, and oh, viewers, yeah, he's good at that. But I'm a new YouTuber. Anyway, Rocky, thank you for joining us and everybody else. And I will be, I'll be ending this. And thank you. Don't forget to like the like button. It warms my heart. 1, 2, 3, out.